Hello, everyone. This is Jodi Levine from Earthroots Field School, and I am here on a Zoom call with Lindsay Hansen.
Hi.
And Lindsay is a friend of Earthroots and a very talented artist who's been sharing her creativity with Earthroots community for many years. And so I wanted to invite her in for a conversation because she's just come out with two new designs, both inspired by animals at Big Oak Canyon. And I wanted her to take a minute and share some conversations about what inspired her to create these designs of the mountain lion and the owl in the oak tree at Big Oak Canyon, and then also share with us more about her work and how she came to create really such a unique form of artwork that we see on her website, and I see it in her family's home and in my family's home and many friends and family around our area. So let's start with maybe where you live now and share a story of, what inspires you behind this artwork.
Thanks, Jodi. Yeah, I'm happy to join you for this conversation. So right now I am living in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm here to work on a project with USGS, the United States Geological Survey, doing a project looking at fish in the Grand Canyon and to see how and what they eat and how they grow. So my background is in ecology, and I am getting a master's degree in environmental science. And so I love being outside and I spend a lot of my time outside. But whenever I'm outside, the lens that I see the world through is always through a kind of scientific and a place of curiosity and wonder. And I use my art kind of as a way to explore science and try to communicate things that make me feel passionate and me feel inspired to other people, whether that is about nature or an organism or an experience that I've had outside. So yeah, whenever I spend time outside, I feel inspired to create and to be able to share that with other people.
Awesome. Can you tell us where you are today, where you're living and what it's like outside? And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I am in Flagstaff, Arizona. And when I moved here from California, people um, who I was living with were asking me if I was moving to the desert and it would be super hot. But Flagstaff is actually on a mountain at 7,000 feet elevation. Um, and it snows here. So over this past weekend, we had 2 feet of snow, which was really exciting. Um, and we do get seasons up here. We're in a ponderosa pine forest, um, in a really geologically interesting area. There's lots of volcanoes in the area, um, and the Grand Canyon is not too far away. So you get to see all of the layers of geologic history over time. And right now I'm in a library at Northern Arizona University. I'm on the campus there, where I am getting my master's degree.
thank
Yeah.
you. So I wanted to ask you regarding the shirts that you made for Earthroots. I'll show a couple more pictures because a lot of people are walking around town these days or taking hikes with the, let's see the other ones. For some reason, I'm having a hard time seeing it. Let's see. There we go. With the bat and bird shirt, or the kelp with the eel in it, or the butterfly with the caterpillar, all made for Earthroots Field School. And those are our shirts that we've had for a couple of years now. And I have to tell you, as the person who runs the organization and represents the organization that sells these t-shirts, I feel really proud of the artwork. So thank you so much for making it. And do you have any stories about how you came to place them in the way that you did for these pieces?
Yeah, so It's really exciting to see someone wearing something that you create. It's just always, it means a lot. So it's really exciting to be able to see people wearing these designs on these shirts. Um, for the designs I created for Earthroots, I spent a lot of time thinking about the landscapes and the organisms that somebody might see at an Earthroots class or an Earthroots gathering. So in the chaparral ecosystem in Southern California, starting with the butterfly shirt. Historically, this is a pathway for the monarch migration. And nowadays it is quite rare to see a monarch, especially in hordes, migrating through. But I kind of wanted to celebrate that history and celebrate those small little moments that you experience when you do get to work with invertebrates. A lot of times people can be really inspired by charismatic megafauna, meaning the bigger mammals that kind of remind people of maybe their household pets, but there is beauty in the tiny things. And so for this design, I wanted to remind people to look down every now and then. And then for the shirt with the bat and the bird, I was thinking a lot about kind of balances between night and day for this shirt. Both of these organisms you might see in Southern California. Birds are more visible because they're out during the day. They arrive for their dawn chorus in the morning when the sun first comes up. And they are interconnected with those invertebrates from that first shirt. But as the sun goes down, you will start to see bats taking over the skies, and they're really important controllers of insect abundance. So thankfully for bats, we live in a world where there are enough insects that we have healthy ecosystems, but they're not out of hand. They're not too many. And then for this underwater shirt, because we live in Southern California and Earthroots does have some classes that go to the beach, oftentimes we see the beach and the environments that are at the ocean from the surface level because we are humans. Our eyes are adapted to living on land and seeing in air. But if you just look under the surface, there's a whole new world down there that's completely different than anything that we would see on land. It's rich with life, and the life looks a lot different than that which we know in as land dwellers. So I wanted to explore that a little bit. And also something that really interests me is the idea of navigating a 3D world. So all of the organisms that I chose to include in these designs navigate a 3D world, whether that's being able to fly, as in the butterfly, the bird, and the bat, or being able to swim through the shark and the eel in the underwater design.
It's so cool. Thanks for sharing all of that. I wanted to talk now about the Earthroots shirts that you just made that we're releasing limited editions of tomorrow for Giving Tuesday. We have 2 new designs that Lindsay made, and they're inspired by Big Oak Canyon. And Lindsay, will you talk a little bit about your experiences at Big Oak Canyon, because you've spent a lot of time there in an intimate way with the land, and then of course created these pieces of art that are now being shared with the community. So I'd love to hear what you like about Big Oak and what we've done there.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. It's a little, oasis in the forest. Big Oak is in the foothills of the mountains in Southern California, and I've been able to volunteer some time doing some restoration work there, kind of refurbishing and if we're preventing erosion in the stream. There's a spring there, which is really exciting because it's a little bit rare in Southern California to find a spring. So we were working to reduce erosion by putting stones there and kind of daylighting that spring. I also spent some time there creating a trail, a nature trail, that connects different parts of the property to other parts to make it easier for access, and so that when visitors come, they can have an experience that's not on a road, that's more natural. I did work as a trail builder for a time, and I have experience building trails sustainably, and so that was really important to build these trails using only materials that we found at Big Oak itself. And it's just a beautiful place. Big trees. I mean, it's called Big Oak for a reason. And there's so much wildlife that comes through there. You'll see birds in the trees that you wouldn't normally see in a busy place. And you see tracks of mountain lions that are there watching us as we work, but are so silent, and they really are an important part of the ecosystem. So it's just an exciting, yeah.
So awesome. Well, I wanted to announce to everyone that tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, and as a special thank you for people who donate to Earthroots at the $150 level or more, we're going to be including a gift for you of one of Lindsay's new t-shirts, the Big Oak Canyon Mountain Lion or the owl camouflaged in the oak tree. And so we'll send out a link for the Giving Tuesday donation, and you can, give us a little something, and we'll give you a beautiful t-shirt made by Lindsay. They're made with organic cotton and have a few different background colors. I also wanted to show a video of some mountain lions moving through the property. Krisha, one of our instructors and staff members, had set up some wildlife cameras right in the middle of our property, Big Oak Canyon. And last year, around this time, we had this incredible, I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm just gonna show you and let you feel excited about it fresh for the first time. So let me find it, and then I will share it. So bear with me during this moment of technical discovery, because I just had it and now I don't know where it is. What are you seeing right now, Lindsay?
I'm seeing part of your screen with multiple tabs open. The t-shirts are in the background. There's an email open.
Okay, let me find the page that I just had open with, I might have lost it. I'm going to reopen it. Everyone's going to be patient because you won't even believe what I'm going to show you.
Yeah, these videos
I've seen it before. Basically, the two wildlife cameras that Krisha set up with her husband, Nick, are both in the heart of the property and then also went up a little higher. And they capture day and night, and they're triggered by motion. So when something walks by and turns the camera on, it'll take a clip of whatever is happening. And I'm ready to share it now. And it's gonna just start playing. Okay, so now Lindsay, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing the video. It's not playing.
Here we go. Here's the start of the video. Yeah, it gets me every time. Did you see that?
We could see, I think so.
Okay. You saw the video of the mountain lions?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's part of what's happening at all different hours throughout the property. So thank you for capturing that in your artwork so we can share it with the world.
Yeah, they're magnificent.
Magnificent. So I'm going to pop open your website again, and I want to show folks a couple of things on your website that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. So here we are, Lindsay E. Hansen. And first of all, I love your style. It's so unique. And this is, I've seen a piece like this. I'm not sure if this is the one that you have at your family's home on the slab. Is this the same one?
They're different. So I love painting on wooden slabs. I think it's a great way to bring a piece of nature into the art itself. I also think wood slabs are just gorgeous. So if anyone has a spare wood slab, please let me know. I'd love to paint on it.
Okay, I'm going to make that happen for you. And if anyone else can find extra slabs laying around, we'll get in touch with Lindsay and pass them along to her. So I'm going to scroll through some of your paintings and stop on this one called The Flood and ask if you can share the backstory on this piece.
Definitely, yeah. So I've been making paintings in this kind of style for a few years now. The idea kind of originated from looking at aerial pictures of rice paddies and also stained glass and thinking about habitat fragmentation as well as the human impacts on habitats. Part of the reason why I do fragment the landscape is to figure out how much fragmentation I can put into a landscape and still have it resemble the original or a landscape in general. But as I was creating these works, I started thinking about ways that I could include more scientific findings or scientific themes in a way that would kind of pull people in and encourage people to look at science in a way that isn't a scientific paper.
Right.
I often feel that scientific papers can be, first off, they're expensive to access, and second, they are filled with words that are really specific or don't make a lot of sense, and they have graphs in them or models in them that can be really confusing. So in this painting and in a couple of my other paintings that I'm currently working on, I've tried to include graphs hidden within the context of the painting itself to kind of invite the viewer to understand something that's happening in the world. So, for example, in this painting, The Flood, if you look at that mountain range in the foreground, it has a pink kind of salmon colored line that caresses the ridgeline. And this line is actually a graph that shows the increase in flood events in the United States over time from the 1970s to today. So the 1970s would be on the left, which is lower occurrence of floods. And on the right, you can see that we have a higher occurrence of catastrophic floods, which is likely due to warming climates, climate change, different rain patterns that go along with that. This also impacts fish communities. So oftentimes with small fish, you'll see them getting washed out of creeks or rivers where flow normally is at a stable level. When they have these giant floods, the fish get washed away. And depending on the species of fish, if they get washed too far downstream, they can't make it back up to repopulate those flooded areas. So I try to create something beautiful, but also something with some sort of a message in it that might inspire somebody with the right kind of ability or job or voice to have new thoughts and perhaps make a change.
That's so beautiful. I just want to tell you that your goal has been met. I think of myself as someone who has a very strong base awareness of environmental issues. And I did not consider the fate of young fish in flooded waters, so thank you for showing that so clearly and bringing a strong message to people in such a beautiful way. This is so easy to take in as compared, like you said, to a scientific paper or looking at black and white charts. So
thank you so much.
It makes you want to bring it home and share it with your friends instead of like, I've got this thing I really need to talk to you about.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah,
it's a little less daunting if it's approachable, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so beautiful, and you have such a gift and a talent, and I'm so grateful that you've found your way to create these pieces and to share your view of the world, which is so unique. Like, we didn't even get to talk about the work that you've done in Santa Cruz so far. Let's find a picture that talks about or that demonstrates some of that. Can you lead me to something on your website that I can show?
Sure, yeah. So if you scroll up to the top of the website, and you go to art gallery, if you click on illustrations, there is a collection of some illustrations that I've made for Earthroots and for other organizations. So this first one that you're seeing here is the one I made for Big Oak with the owl in the live oak tree.
I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the next few I created for my previous position. I was working for the Watershed Stewards Program, which is a combination program of AmeriCorps and the California Conservation Corps. But mostly I was working at NOAA Fisheries in Santa Cruz. And so part of the reason why I love fish so much is because of my work with them. I was working with endangered coho salmon and steelhead salmon, which actually are the same species as rainbow trout. They just have, so if a rainbow trout or a steelhead lay eggs, half of those eggs will become rainbow trout and half of them will go to the ocean and become steelhead. It just depends on how they decide to live. It's pretty exciting. So I made these designs to kind of celebrate those things that we would see up in Santa Cruz. Salmon are very active at dawn and at dusk, which is why I included the phases of the moon in this particular piece. I've also included a kind of cutaway diagram of the fish. Part of this work I was doing was elementary school education. And as part of that, we would do a lot of dissection so that students could learn about the similarities and the differences between their bodies and a fish's body. Different adaptations that a fish might need, like gills rather than lungs, or a swim bladder so that they can control how they float. I've also included a dragonfly in this piece, just to kind of represent the kind of food that a salmon might eat, some sort of an invertebrate in the water column.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm going to scroll down to the next one. That's such a sweet piece. Oh, and I see you got the tools there too.
Yeah. So as part of the California Conservation Corps, we did a little bit of watershed restoration work on the ground, restoring creeks, planting trees, and reducing erosion.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love this next one too.
Yeah, so these pieces are on the right. You will see the flowers. Those are some flowers that you might see. They're pretty common flowers. Depending on the species, you might find them in different places across the United States. At the bottom, we have some asters or daisies, and then we have the California state flower, the poppy, and above that is a lupin. And I think I've seen some lupin in parts of Big Oak, if I'm not mistaken, up on the hill.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're beautiful purple flowers. I love them so much. And on the left and on the other side of the screen, you'll see the life cycle of a salmon. So they start as eggs, and then they turn into something called alvin, which is they hatch, but they still have a yolk sac attached to them. Mm-hmm. From there, they turn into juvenile fish or fry. And right before they're ready to go to the ocean, they become smolts. So they get silver and their cells start being able to handle that salt water. For when they leave their creek, they go to the ocean to get lots of food, and they need to be able to handle that change from freshwater to saltwater. They go into the ocean for a few years where there's lots of nutrients. They use their noses to smell out that fresh water where they were born, the same stream they were born in. And they swim back upstream and lay their eggs in the creek where they were born. And salmon are semiparous, meaning they can only have eggs and spawn once and then they die, which seems tragic, but actually it's amazing because they've been living out in the ocean for 3 to 4 years. They've been eating all of the nutrients in the ocean. When they die, their carcasses actually feed the trees. So salmon are part of the reason why redwood forests exist in Santa Cruz and in other parts of California and the Pacific Northwest, because they bring all that food in to the forest from the ocean.
It's such a miracle.
Yeah, they're so resilient, and they're ecosystem engineers. They're very important.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful to think about how the ocean, nutrients from the ocean feed the forest floor, creating the redwood trees.
Yeah, everything.
I love that concept.
It's pretty beautiful.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll go to this one next. I'd love to hear this story.
Yeah, so this was made for my research group at NOAA Fisheries. This design kind of celebrates all of the different parts of what it meant to be a salmon biologist there. So once again, you have the fish, the salmon itself. On the two edges of the triangle, we have a redwood cone. So these trees are the tallest tree on the earth, but their cones are very tiny. They're about the size of a silver dollar. And yet they can create these giant trees. I've also included an invertebrate, or a water-dwelling bug, that juvenile fish love to eat. Their diet is largely consistent of these organisms. In the center above the circle, I've included some plants that we would see, and also some fungi that we would see in the forests near Santa Cruz. So these are some mushrooms, some morels, some chanterelles, and an orchid called an adder's tongue, which has really neat black dots on their leaves. And then the bird at the bottom is a kingfisher. So this is kind of the part of the food chain that a fish biologist might not be super excited about, but nonetheless is very important. So the kingfishers love a good snack of a juvenile salmon that lives in the creek. So you often see them kind of fluttering above the creek and then kind of diving straight on in and catching up the salmon, which is pretty beautiful to see. And right above the fish are 3 tags. So these are the ways that a biologist might be able to identify a fish. A lot like the band you'd put on a bird or a collar around a dog, we put tags on fish. So the one on top with the 217 on it is called a disc tag. And those are for fish that you might have in a hatchery that support populations of endangered fish. So they sometimes have a group of fish in the hatchery, which is called a brood stock, and they will lay eggs, and those eggs will be hatched in the hatchery and then released into the wild to make sure they don't get washed away in those giant floods. Below that is something called a floy tag, which is useful for when adults come back to the stream, so we can just see them in the stream. They'll have this tag kind of coming out of their fin, and you'll be able to tell the species based on the color of that tag. And right below it is a pit tag. So that's kind of like the tag you put in a dog, or it works like a transponder on a highway. So you put that subdermally or underneath the skin of the fish. And whenever they swim through an antenna that we have placed around the creek, we can tell where the fish are going, if they're going upstream, downstream, how old they are based on how many times we see that tag coming through. So they're really useful tools to count fish and to figure out should these fish be considered endangered? Should they, how much protection and how much management should we have to keep an abundant population? And at the very bottom of this triangle, we have a bee. And bees aren't necessarily part of the life cycle of a fish, but this was something that a lot of the people on my team were beekeepers. And so I kind of threw in a bee to, bring a little bit of personality to the piece.
Nice. It's beautiful. I love the way how you weave together a story through your artwork. So just such a beautiful way of expression.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that with us today. I'm going to scroll up back to the top and leave it at the Big Oak Canyon picture for our wrap up of our conversation today, and ask if there's anything else you want to share about your work or life in general.
I just appreciate being able to partner with Big Oak and with Earthroots. It's a really amazing organization, and to be able to help and share my excitement with nature with all of the people who work for and volunteer at Earthroots is really exciting. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And if you're inspired by what you've heard today from Lindsay, you can check out her website, and it's right up here so you can see it so easily. And then also, if you want to learn more about Earthroots, it's earthrootsfieldschool.org. And if you're even inspired to wear one of these shirts, the new Big Oak Canyon designs with the mountain lion or the owl in the oak tree, and you want to make a contribution for Giving Tuesday, which is tomorrow, you can find a link below. All right. Hope everyone has a fantastic week, and keep getting outside and connecting with nature. And I just want to encourage everyone to take those you love and bring a notebook and a pen and draw something, even if it's as simple as a leaf or an ant that you find on the ground. Share that with someone you love, and connecting with nature really helps improve our health and the health of the earth. So I want to leave you with that. And thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining me today on this call.
Thanks, Jodi.
Yeah, have a great day. Now I have to figure out how to turn it off, so bear with me. Have a great time, everyone. Bye-bye.